The time is now 11 p.m. and here are the headlines for tonight. Sarawak State Legislative Assembly passes the 2023 state budget. Sarawak civil servants to get 1.5-month bonus. And GPS is committed to its Sarawak First policy. Assalamualaikum and a very good evening. I'm Shira Abang Mansur and this is TVS Nightline. The Sarawak Legislative Assembly (DUN) has passed the State Budget 2023 of 10.797 billion ringgit after it was discussed and winded up today. Speaker Tan Sri Dato' Amar Muhammad Asfia Awang Nasar said the bill was approved with a majority vote. Earlier on November 21st, Premier Dato' Patinggi Tan Sri Abang Johari Tunapeng, who tabled the State Budget 2023, said the budget is expected to generate a surplus of 238 million ringgit with a projected revenue of 11.035 billion ringgit and a total ordinary expenditure of 10.797 billion ringgit. The proposed budget themed Sarawak First towards an inclusive, prosperous and harmonious society is anchored on 5 principles, which include developing a more robust, competitive and equitable economy. Now, Sarawak civil servants will get a special incentive payment of 1.5-month basic salary or a minimum of 2,000 ringgit before the end of this year. The matter was announced by the Premier of Sarawak, Dato' Patinggi Tan Sri Abang Johari Tunapeng, during the winding-up session of the Sarawak State Legislative Assembly (DUN) conference on Thursday. Meanwhile, about 137,000 federal civil servants serving in Sarawak will also receive an incentive worth 500 ringgit.
Dengan ini, kerajaan GPS telah memutuskan untuk memberi bayaran insentif khas bersamaan 1,5 bulan gaji pokok atau minima RM2,000 kepada pegawai perkhidmatan awam negeri Sarawak dan akan dibayar sebelum penghujung tahun ini. Kita juga akan membayar insentif khas kepada lebih kurang 137,000 penjawat awam persekutuan yang berkhidmat di Sarawak sebanyak RM500.
The state government under the leadership of Premier Dato' Patinggi Tan Sri Abang Johari Tunapeng is committed towards building an inclusive, prosperous and harmonious society under its ethos of Sarawak First.
I am glad to see Sarawak's economy is picking up and on track of recovery as we move towards endemicity. But we, the GPS government, will not rest on our laurels. We will continue to bring more development to Sarawak and fight against all odds and challenges that may come our way.
He said this in his ministerial winding-up speech at the State Legislative Assembly (DUN) earlier today. Sarawak as a whole, he said, needs to focus on improving its work efficiency and culture to achieve higher productivity and GDP growth, as well as enhancing its competitiveness of its commercial and industrial sectors.
Sarawak government will continue to provide the impetus for driving Sarawak's economic growth by improving basic infrastructure and transportation, air and sea connectivity and accessibility, development of talents through better system of education and training, increasing the pace towards digital economy, and uplifting the standard of living of the rural population. This will create opportunities for fellow Sarawakians to participate in our industrial development especially in the resource-based industry.
Similarly, Abang Jari at the same event said that the state government is also committed of putting Sarawak first via the Sarawak Sovereign Wealth Future Fund Ordinance 2022 as SWFF Ordinance.
I am happy to note that everyone seems to understand the intention, concept, and the rationale of the establishment of this investment fund through the SSWFF ordinance. I wish to highlight that the SSWFF ordinance does not operate in derogation of other laws. The penalties under the ordinance is intended to punish those who are negligent in the management of the fund as well as for non-compliance of any requirements under the ordinance.
The Premier stressed that offenders would not only be punished under the ordinance but will also be subjected to other laws relating to criminal offences such as the Penal Code Act 574 and the Anti-Corruption Commission Act 2009 Act 694. He stressed that GPS government will ensure strict and heavy penalty to be enforced on Board of Guardian if they are found guilty of misappropriation of fund or acting recklessly or negligently in the discharge of their fiduciary duties to the board and its stakeholders.
Additionally, the government will strictly monitor the implementation and governance of the fund and will take any action to ensure the smooth and transparent management of the fund. Rest assured, the government is serious in its intention to manage the fund in accordance with the Santiago Principles and to uphold transparency and good governance in the management of this fund.
Meanwhile, Gabungan Party Sarawak hopes to retain the status quo on its 4 full ministerial posts in the new federal cabinet. Its chairman, Dato' Patinggi Tan Sri Abang Jori Tunapeng, when asked, said he had not heard anything pertaining to the matter.
Most likely, we retain the number, the previous number. I don't know. Prime Minister, I hope so.
He told this to the media at the State Legislative Assembly complex earlier today. Asked about whether there will be a representative from the Gabungan Party Sarawak GPS to assume the position of Deputy Prime Minister in the future, he did not elaborate on the matter. Previously, Dato' Sri Anwar Ibrahim announced that the 2 deputies will likely be from GPS and BN. Since its launch in 2017, Petros is now the 3rd largest oil and gas company in Malaysia. Premier of Sarawak, Dato' Patinggi Tan Sri Abang Jori Tunapeng, disclosed the matter during the 3rd meeting of the first session at the Dun sitting on Thursday.
He added that in the offshore exploration and production space, Petros has 3 production sharing contract, or PSC, offshore production, and 4 PSC, offshore exploration. The Premier also told that Petros will implement 2 projects as part of the Sarawak Gas Roadmap involving Miri and Samalaju, commenting further that these projects require an investment of around 6 billion ringgit. Petros and other relevant state agencies will continue to promote such opportunities to downstream investors.
The Sarawak government remains committed in its effort to bring development to rural areas. As such, Minister of Infrastructure and Port Development MIPD Dato' Amar Douglas Ugah Embas said 4.5 billion ringgit or 60% of the 7.5 billion ringgit allocated to the development budget has been set aside for rural development purposes, as Sarawak still lags in terms of its infrastructure development as compared to Peninsular Malaysia.
Of ringgit Malaysia 75 billion allocated to the development budget, 60% or ringgit Malaysia 4.5 billion is targeted for rural development in Sarawak. This is evident that through this budget commitment, Sarawak GPS government is serious in its effort to develop rural area We will leave no one behind.
He said this in his ministerial winding up speech in Dun Sitting earlier today. Meanwhile, MIPD has been allocated a total sum of 795.711 million ringgit to undertake 4 basic infrastructure programs.
Ringgit Malaysia 490.941 million for land infrastructure. Ringgit Malaysia 83.860 million for riverine infrastructure. Ringgit Malaysia 167.41 million for government building and 53.5 million for public building.
As such, he reiterated that through these allocations, the government will continue to ensure that no one is left behind.
Deputy Premier of Sarawak in the State Legislative Assembly today disclosed that 50 million ringgit has been spent by the Unit 4 Other Religions, Unit 4, for the repairs, construction and upgrading works of 251 houses of worship.
TVS government will continue to uphold its policy of inclusivity in line with the post-COVID-19 Development Strategy 2030, which can be seen through the funding assistance given to the House of Worship and Mission School in Sarawak. For the year, Unit 4 also has been allocated Ringgit Malaysia 15 million to this year to assist Mission School throughout Sarawak to upkeep building and ground.
Additionally, he said the Premier of Sarawak, Datuk Patinggi Tan Sri Abang Johari Tun Openg, has approved 5 projects amounting to 14.7 million ringgit under the Project Rakyat. The state government has also allocated a total amount of 5 million ringgit to 193 houses of worship this year to ease their operating burden due to the COVID-19 pandemic. For 2023, UGA said the state government has approved a total sum of 100 million ringgit for the houses of worship, or an increase of 50 million ringgit compared to 2022.
TPS government would like to urge the rakyat of various races and religions to further strengthen our understanding, peace and religious harmony in Sarawak, so that the development agenda can be implemented in line with the strategic thrust of ease of doing business under PCDS 2030.
The first regulated forest carbon project will commence in Sarawak in first quarter next year. According to the Premier of Sarawak, Datuk Patinggi Abang Johari Tun Openg, the initiative will be driven by the private sector entities with the technological know-how and financial resources to ensure the success and sustainability of these projects.
Sarawak, because of its stable geological formation, has the biggest carbon storage capacity in offshore areas.
He said this in his ministerial winding-up speech at the State Legislative Assembly Dun earlier today. Abang Johari said Sarawak is estimated to have 30 trillion cubic meters of carbon storage capacity in the seabed of its continental shelf.
The depleted or abundant petroleum fields in offshore areas are suitable for development into sites for secured permanent storage of carbon dioxide CO2 captured by oil and gas companies who now have obligation to reduce emission of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere.
He added the captured and stored CO2 can be used for making of hydrogen, blue ammonia, biofuels, and other products. He also informed that Petros and Petronas are working jointly to begin work on the development of a depleted oil field off the coast of Sarawak for storage of captured CO2 from an adjacent oil-producing field. A license for this, he said, will be issued as soon as the new rules on carbon storage are gazetted in early 2023.
Still to come, Parliament to convene on December 19th, and Anwar Ibrahim reminds all parties to stop the gift-giving culture. Right here on TVS Nightline, stay tuned.
Kehangatan separuh akhir kini bermula. Dihangatkan lagi dengan kehadiran Mami Jiwa Panas.
Jangan ganggu kursi aku!
Bagi tepukan untuk Mami Mas Indah.
I don't like it. Mungkin ini selera. Lebih baik awak putuskan dia lagi cantik. Awak punya aksi pentas, awak punya body language. Mami pun tak tahu apa yang awak nak guna dengan tongkat awak tu. Pegang tongkat pun tak apa nak kena. Sabar!
Sabar, jangan. Papa masam sakit gigi.
Awak kena apa pun keadaannya. Awak kena balancekan nyanyian dan muzik. Okay? Arrangement kena betul, kena dengar.
Yang Faris bercuti.
Saksikan Getaran Jiwa separuh akhir kedua Jumaat 8.45 malam hanya di TVS.
Welcome back on Nightline. Parliament will convene for 2 days on December 19th and 20th, with the first agenda being to elect a new Dewan Rakyat Speaker. The invite issued by Dewan Rakyat Secretary Dr. Nizam Maidin Bacha Maidin to MPS on Thursday, December 1st, state the first order of business will be the election of the Dewan Rakyat Speaker. This will be followed by the swearing-in of MPs and the election of Deputy Speaker. The meeting will also see a motion of confidence towards Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim's majority in the Dewan Rakyat, being the 8th in list. The Parliament sitting will be the first under Anwar's new unity government. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim has reminded all parties not to give him gifts, indicating that the culture must be stopped. In a Facebook posting today, Anwar said he appreciates the good intentions. However, it is not compatible with the ethics of leadership and administration, and it burdens the people. More than 17,000 health ministry staff are currently on standby to deal with flood disasters likely to be caused by the northern monsoon. Tan Sri Dr. Noor Hisham said a medical team comprising of 6,397 members will be making routine visits to evacuation centres and providing medical assistance.
He further added in a statement, the Rapid Assessment Teams and Rapid Response Team each plays an important role in preventing and controlling flood-related outbreaks. Commenting further, the ministry is on a high level of preparedness, with all the necessary information being shared with state health directors and agencies. Therefore, Dr. Noor Hisham urged the people to be aware of the latest instructions from the authorities and always take health measures to prevent diseases that normally emerge during flood season. Those with open wounds or other skin issues should stay away from flood waters to prevent the spread of leptospirosis, a disease caused by rat urine, and melioidosis spread through contaminated flood waters.
Kalau nak apa-apa lagi tahu ya. Kau ni dah kenapa Mina? Ini mesti kau bergaduh-gaduh ni kan?
Bukan bergaduh, Mak. Abang Tu dah tak ada.
Dah tak ada? Aduh, bagaimana?
Abang Tu dah masuk ke darah jiwa. Abang Tu pergi 8 minggu. Nanti rindu.
Kalau nak apa-apa lagi tahu ya. Kau ni dah kenapa Mina? Ini mesti kau bergaduh-gaduh ni kan?
Bukan bergaduh, Mak. Abang Tu dah tak ada.
Dah tak ada? Aduh, bagaimana?
Abang Tu dah masuk ke darah jiwa. Abang Tu pergi 8 minggu. Nanti rindu.
Thank you for staying with us. China is set to announce in coming days an easing of its COVID-19 quarantine protocols and a reduction in mass testing. This marks a shift in policy after anger over the world's toughest curbs fueled widespread protests.
Cases nationwide remain near record high, but the changes come as some cities have been lifting their lockdowns in recent days, and a top official said the ability of the virus to cause disease was weakening. Health authorities announcing the easing in their areas have not mentioned the protests, the biggest show of civil disobedience in China for years. They range from candlelit vigils in Beijing to street clashes with police in Guangzhou. Now, sources familiar with the matter said the measures due to be unveiled include a reduction in mass testing, regular nucleic acid tests, and moves to allow positive cases and close contacts to isolate at home under certain conditions. That is a far cry from earlier protocols that led to public frustrations as entire communities were locked down, sometimes for weeks, even after just one positive case. The frustration boiled over last week in demonstrations of public defiance unprecedented in mainland China since President Xi Jinping took power in 2012, and come as the economy is set to enter a new era of much slower growth than seen in decades. While the change in tone on COVID appears a response to the public discontent with strict measures, authorities are also seeking out for questioning those present at the demonstrations. China Dissent Monitor, run by U.S. government-funded Freedom House, estimated at least 27 demonstrations took place across China from Saturday to Monday. Australia's ASPI think tank estimated 51 protests in 24 cities.
The BQ.1.1 subvariant of COVID-19 is currently taking precedence over the BA.5 subvariant in France. According to immunologist Brigitte Autran, the latest resurgence of COVID-19 is the beginning of a wave, even though the increase in the number of cases is not yet significant.
She said the trend is not good. It is up because of the subvariant of the virus. She added BA.5, the subvariant of the original Omicron subvariant of COVID-19 that has been prevalent in France, has already been replaced by the BQ.1.1 subvariant, which is the baby of BA.5. This variant is more contagious, and it explains the current surge in the number of new cases. Autran said that the BQ.1.1 subvariant is currently being observed all over the world. We do not know yet if it is meaner, she said, but it is understood to be more contagious, and therefore it is absolutely necessary to get protected and vaccinated. She called on the eligible population to get booster shots, arguing that vaccines guarantee protection against severe forms of COVID and against death. She also reiterated the need to respect barrier measures, including wearing masks, at least on public transport and in crowded places.
The United Nations and partners on Thursday launched an appeal for a record $51.5 billion in aid money for 2023, with tens of millions of additional people expected to need humanitarian assistance. The UN Global Humanitarian Overview estimates that an extra 65 million people will need help next year, bringing the total to 339 million in 68 countries.
That represents more than 4% of the people on the planet, or about the population of the United States.
What we're planning to spend, hoping to spend, which for 2023 is $51.5 billion. Another all-time record, of course. And it's equivalent, the 339 million people is equivalent to the third most populous country in the world.
Over 100 million people have been driven from their homes as conflict and climate change fuel a displacement crisis. Meanwhile, the report said 9 months of war between Russia and Ukraine have disrupted food exports, and around 45 million people in 37 countries are currently facing starvation. This year's appeal represents a 25% increase compared to last year, but donor funding is already under strain with the multiple crises. The United Nations faces the biggest funding gap ever, with its appeals only about 53% funded in 2022, based on data through to mid-November.
The gap is because of the needs, not because of the funding. And the needs are going up because we've been smitten by the war in Ukraine, by COVID, by climate. And I fear that 2023 is going to be an acceleration of all those trends. And that's why we say in this report and generally that we hope 2023 will be a year of solidarity, just as 2022 has been a year of suffering.
Now, what's in store for those vying for the coveted title of Getaran Jiwa? Don't forget to catch the next episode of TVS new reality program, Getaran Jiwa, every Friday, beginning with the Debaran Jiwa capsule at 7:30 p.m., followed by Getaran Jiwa live concert at 8:45 p.m. The public is also invited to watch this concert at MBKS Stadium, Bintawa. For more information, follow Getaran Jiwa official Facebook page and Instagram. See the world closer with TVS as we bring you the latest news update both locally and internationally. More headlines anytime at tvstv.my or follow us on our social media. And that is all the time we have for TVS Nightline. I'm Shira Abang Mansor. Thank you for watching.